Imagine, if you will, a phone ringing at the stroke of midnight. The tranquility of the night is shattered, the deafening silence broken by the harsh trill of a telephone. The setting is a secluded police station, a beacon of law and order nestled in an otherwise quiet neighborhood. The night has been extraordinarily still, the kind where even the wind seems to hold its breath in anticipation. In this fortress of solitude, a solitary officer remains, battling the weight of his eyelids, the lure of sleep and ever-present temptation. The sudden ringing phone is a jarring note in the symphony of silence, a discordant melody in the otherwise serene night. The officer, startled, reaches for the receiver, a frown of curiosity etched on his face. A woman's voice, quivering with fear, carries over the line. "There's an intruder in my house!" She gasps, her words rushed, her breaths coming in panicked gasps. The officer, trained to handle such calls, does his best to placate her, his voice steady, a rock in the storm of her terror. "Help is on the way, ma'am," he assures her, already dispatching a patrol car to her location. The call ends, the woman's frantic voice replaced by the dial tone's monotonous drone. The officer hangs up, his heart pounding, adrenaline coursing through his veins. There is a sense of unease, a palpable tension that lingers in the air, an ominous foreboding that sends a chill down his spine. He brushes it off as just another night on the job, another call in the long list of distressed citizens he's comforted. But as he settles back into his chair, the quiet of the night pressing in around him, the ringing phone still echoing in his ears, a thought niggles at the back of his mind, a whisper of doubt that he can't shake off. Little did he know, this wasn't an ordinary call for help. As the police car pulls up to the reported address, an eerie silence envelops the neighborhood. The officer steps out, the crunch of gravel underfoot piercing the stillness. The house looms ominously, its windows like empty eyes devoid of life. The front door creaks open under the officer's hand, revealing a darkened foyer. He steps inside, the echo of his footfall a stark reminder of the emptiness. The air is thick with a sense of foreboding, a silent scream hanging in the air. Exploring the house, he finds signs of a struggle. A knocked-over chair, a broken vase, a photograph frame face down on the floor, its glass shattered. But there's no woman, no intruder. The rooms are drenched in an uneasy quiet, the walls whispering stories of a desperate battle, but the players are missing. The officer's heart pounds in his chest. He pulls out his walkie-talkie, his voice cutting through the silence like a knife. He reports back to the station, detailing the scene, the disarray, the unsettling quiet. But just as he's about to sign off, there's a static hiss, a crackle, and then silence. He tries again, his voice a little more strained now, a little more anxious. But all that greets him is the cold, unending silence. The walkie-talkie, his lifeline, his connection to the outside world, is now as silent as the house itself. He checks it, shakes it, but it's like it's dead. Panic starts to gnaw at his gut, a cold dread creeping up his spine. The house seems to close in around him, the walls leaning in, the ceiling pressing down. He's alone, cut off. The silence is a deafening roar in his ears, a palpable entity. He can feel it, taste it, its icy fingers curling around his heart. An icy chill runs down his spine as the line goes dead. The house, the silence, the solitude, it all starts to press down on him. The officer is alone in the house. Or is he? Back at the station, the sudden loss of contact with the officer sends a wave of dread through the room. The air grows heavy as the normal chatter and hum of activity is replaced by an eerie silence. The radio crackles, sputtering static, but there's no voice on the other end, no reassuring confirmation of safety, just the chilling sound of silence. Frantic, the team tries to re-establish connection. Fingers fly across keyboards, lights flicker as switches are thrown, but the screen remains stubbornly blank. The line remains dead. The station, once a beacon of order and control, is now the epicenter of fear and uncertainty. The officer, their comrade, is missing. The decision is made quickly, despite the undercurrent of fear. Another officer has to be sent. The room fills with a palpable tension as the second officer is chosen. He nods, determination etched on his face, and steps into the cold night. The station watches him leave, the red and blue lights of his car painting the walls in a grim spectacle. The journey to the location is a blur. The world outside the car is a dark, swirling canvas, punctuated only by the harsh glare of the headlights. The second officer arrives at the scene, heart pounding in his chest. But what he finds isn't what he expected. The first officer's car is there, but it's eerily empty. The doors are open, the lights are still on, and the radio is crackling with static. But there's no sign of the first officer, no trace of a struggle, no hint of where he might have gone. The second officer stands alone in the biting cold, the silence of the night broken only by the occasional crackle of static from the radio. He reaches for his own radio, his hand shaking slightly. The words stick in his throat, but he forces them out. "Officer down, I repeat, officer down." He swallows hard, glancing around the empty street. The atmosphere is thick with tension, as the second officer realizes he is now alone. Suddenly the station phone rings again, echoing through the now anxious station. The sharp trill slices through the tense silence, making the officers jump. They glance at each other, hesitation etched on their faces before one of them finally picks up the receiver. It's the same woman, her voice trembling more than before. She's panting, gasping for breath between her words. "He's back," she stammers. "He's back in my house." Her words are like icy fingers running down the spines of those listening. A chill settles in the room, one that no amount of heating can ward off. And then she says something that makes their blood run cold. "But I see the police car outside." There's confusion, then realization. A collective gasp echoes around the room as the truth dawns on them. The team is frozen with fear, their faces pale in the harsh overhead light. The officer on the phone tries to remain calm, tries to assure her that help is on the way, but his voice wavers, betraying his fear. The woman on the line starts to sob, her cries echoing in the receiver, amplifying the terror that has already taken root. The police car outside her house means only one thing. Their missing colleague had made it to the woman's house. But where is he now? Why hadn't he reported back? The questions pile up, each one adding to the growing sense of dread. The woman on the phone is still crying, her sobs a haunting soundtrack to the nightmare that is unfolding. And then, all of a sudden, the line goes dead. The officer holding the phone pulls it away from his ear, staring at it in disbelief. He slowly places it back on the cradle, his hand shaking. And then there's nothing, only silence. A ringing, deafening silence that fills the room, wrapping everyone in its chilling embrace. The officers look at each other, their faces reflecting the horror of the situation. Their worst fears have come to life, and they are left to grapple with the implications. The line cuts off again, leaving only ringing silence. As a sense of doom settles over the station, the door swings open. A sudden gust of wind rushes in, carrying the scent of the city's underbelly. The missing officer steps into the room, his face as pale as a ghost, his eyes wide with fear. His uniform is untouched, his badge gleaming under the fluorescent lights. He starts recounting his journey, his voice trembling slightly. He tells them there was no house at the given address, just an empty lot overgrown with weeds. His words hang heavy in the air, a chilling contradiction to the frantic call they received earlier. The team exchanges confused glances, their minds racing to piece together the jigsaw of this eerie puzzle. Just as they try to digest this revelation, the station phone rings again, cutting through the thick silence. The same distressed woman is on the line, but this time her words send shivers down their spines. She claims she's calling from inside the station. The phone slips from the officer's hand, clattering onto the desk. The echo of her voice lingers in the room, her plea for help resonating in their ears. The room is frozen in terror. The officers, once the embodiment of law and order, now look like frightened children. The lights flicker, casting ominous shadows on their faces. The ticking clock on the wall seems to beat in sync with their racing hearts. As the team turns to the officer, they find his chair empty. The room is thrown into a frenzy. The officers scramble to their feet, their chairs screeching against the floor. Their eyes dart around the room, their minds struggling to comprehend the unfolding nightmare. The station is filled with an echoing horror as they realize the call is coming from inside their own walls. The chilling reality sets in. The predator is not lurking in the dark alleyways of the city. It's here, within the fortress they believe to be impenetrable. Their sanctuary has become their prison, and the hunter has now become the hunted. Emerging from the terrifying ordeal, the officers are left in a state of shock and disbelief. The room is eerily silent, save for the distant hum of the city. They exchange weary glances, their faces reflecting the horrifying reality they had just experienced. The fluorescent lights cast long shadows on the walls, adding to the surreal atmosphere. Their minds are a whirlwind of confusion and fear, trying to comprehend the horrifying events that unfolded before them. Their once sturdy fortress of law and order has been shattered, replaced by a haunting sense of vulnerability. The station, once bustling with activity, returns to its usual quiet, but the officers are forever changed. Gone is the confident swagger, replaced by a palpable unease. They go about their duties in a mechanical manner, their minds distracted, their hearts heavy. The phone rings again, cutting through the silence like a knife. The shrill sound sends a shiver down their spines. The officers exchange terrified glances, but no one dares to answer. The ringing echoes in the room, each tone a chilling reminder of the nightmare they had just lived through. The phone eventually stops, but the silence that follows is even more haunting. And so, the nightmare in blue continues in the minds of those who lived it. Their sanctuary has been violated, their peace shattered. The events of the night have left a permanent scar on their minds, a chilling reminder that sometimes the monsters are not lurking in the shadows outside, but within the walls they call home.